Hello and thanks for joining me for your in-depth weekly horoscope for week commencing the 10th of January. This is for the Sun or the Ascendant. As ever, I'll give you a broad overview before, please stay with me, I will dive deep and go into each individual zodiac sign to give you in forensic detail what you can expect for the next 7 days. Now, if you are new to my channel, I would be honoured if you would subscribe. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. Now, this week begins with an event which actually happened late last week, still very much to the fore, and that's a quarter moon between the Sun and the Moon. The Moon on Sunday was in the sign of Aries, the Sun in the sign of Capricorn. Aries is the first house, the first zodiac sign. It's very much to do with action and energy and impulse. And the moon in this location can be quite restless, whereas the Sun in the sign of Capricorn is much more about how the established order works. So if we want to try something a bit more individual this week, we have to be mindful of how it will be received. Now, also this week, from Monday through to Wednesday, the Sun is forging a beautiful link with Neptune. If you are someone who has a strong compassion for those who are less fortunate, this is really going to emphasize that part of your nature. This could see you making a donation to a good cause, or perhaps doing something just in a practical way. You know, keeping an eye on an elderly neighbour, or perhaps if someone's got COVID, going and doing a bit of shopping for them, putting it on their doorstep just to give them some assistance. The Sun in the sign of Capricorn can be about status and more material gains. Neptune in Pisces is much more spiritual. So it's like trying to find a union between the two when they're in this sextile. But in the second half of this week, the Sun comes in to a conjunction with Pluto. Now, by Sunday, this becomes absolutely exact. This is very much to do with transformations. Pluto is the planet of change, but it can also be the planet of endings. So if there's something in our situation that needs to make way, then this particular influence is going to call out to us. Now, it could be an old lifestyle approach. It may be a job that we're not enjoying very much. Perhaps it is that relationship which has seen better days and been bumping along the bottom. But that transformation that can go on between the Sun and Pluto can also be within ourselves. So we can change and our relationship to situations alter quite deeply. Now, of course, on Friday, Mercury finally goes into its retrograde. It's actually been in its pre-shadow period since the last 3 days of last year. So if something has been meandering along and not quite gaining the traction that you've been hoping for, this could explain it. But also this week, Mars is in an aggravating angle with Neptune. So Mars is very much about passion, action, desire. Neptune can dissolve, so sometimes our motives can be a bit unclear when these two are not communicating clearly. So with Mercury also in a retrograde in the sector of friendships and group associations and how we connect to others, I think it's going to be important if something or somebody seems a little bit different or not quite clear in where they're coming from, not to jump to a conclusion, because the potential for confusion is definitely there later in this week. But if we can stay clear-minded and clear in our actions, some kind of change can happen in our situations which actually can be very positive, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time, which often can be the case with Pluto. Now, before I go on to tell you about each of the 12 zodiac signs, year 2022 is with us. If you want to order your forecast and get my special package of your character analysis as well, from the time of the order, I will give you 12 full months. plus 30% off. But all this is based on your unique birth data, not just your sun sign, and can give you searing insights of what you can expect in the months ahead, and also discover what makes you tick at a much deeper level. Please see the link beneath this video. Hello Capricorn, and welcome to your in-depth forecast for week commencing the 10th of January. This week begins with the Sun pretty close to Venus still in your sign, but both are allied to Neptune, that shimmering energy, so magical, wonderful if you like to write or read, or your thing is poetry or music or photography. Neptune is wonderful for these things, and the Sun, of course, is your innate passion, and Venus can be very creative and also very sensual. So Venus and Neptune in that lovely link suggests that for some lucky goats, there could be somebody on your cosmic radar that is really having quite an impact on your senses. This doesn't have to be romantic. It could be a neighbour, it could be a sibling, it could be someone who shares your credo, but somehow the connection between you is very pleasing indeed. However, we can't ignore the fact that Mars is in a very psychological location, and it was as we came into the new year. So your solar return for this year has a psychological dimension to it, and that means being conscious of your fears, the shadow side of your nature and motivations, and those of others, but also not being dominated by these. So being in touch with your feelings and feeding that into your action zone. And your action zone comes together in the guise of the Sun's advance to Pluto. And by the end of this week on Sunday, they are side by side. This is a very impactful conjunction. Pluto can be about change, can be about transformation, can be about secrets, can be about power. It can be also about conspiracies. It can be about the hidden side of life. But in your own sign, the first house, this transformation for me speaks of an opportunity for you to alter the way you approach something. Now what that is your choice. You may choose to change nothing. The thing with Pluto, when we feel that everything's going fine, Pluto can decide, even though we don't realise it, that something does need to alter. So if there is some gift or talent within you that you're not tapping into quite as much as you could, then this transformational link is pushing you to be open to it. And if you don't, then circumstances could push you to be open to it. But in terms of your finances, Mercury does go into a retrograde at the end of this week, with Saturn, your ruler, already in a jagged right angle with Uranus. It's not a time to be too free and easy with your resources, I don't feel. But your idea zone is absolutely lit up by this conjunction between the Sun and Pluto, and that previous one between the Sun in its sextile with Neptune. So a lot of creativity is washing around your situation this week. Now there could be one inhibiting factor to this, and that is that the quarter moon that occurred at the end of last week was in your sector of emotion. And making sure that whatever you decide to do in a dramatic way works for you in terms of your sense of security is the key. Sometimes we can do something really daring and it can make us feel amazing. You know, whether it's chucking ourselves out the back of a plane on a sponsored parachute jump to raise money for a good cause, that could be something daring that has a lot of uplift to it. But if we do something quite daring without thinking about our safety in some way, that's not so good. So if you are thinking about doing something more dramatic, just factor in what the implications would be if your plan actually works.